Hey, Rabbi B here, Baruch Halevi. Very excited to be coming to you tonight on Facebook Live, getting everything set up here. So just give everybody a second to tune in. So tonight we're going to be diving into this is called the meaning experience, and I'm exploring different aspects of meaning in our lives because my central belief, thesis, and work as a guide or a counselor is to help people find meaning in whatever they're navigating, whatever they're dealing with. I'm a student of Dr. Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning, and creator of logotherapy. Logo means meaning, so meaning-centered therapy or counseling. And really his thesis has become my thesis, which is we can navigate anything in life, no matter how difficult it might be, if we have meaning, if we have purpose. And out of that, right, we can transform tragedy. I've been doing a series of videos as of recent called Remembering to Transform Tragedy. I just did my final installment of it. I think it's now 4 or 5 videos you can get on my site, mysoulcenter.org. And it's about how to transform tragedy. And one of the primary ways is through legacy, the idea of legacy and what it means to deal with legacy. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. I'm really thinking of it as guardians of our loved one's legacy. And I want to tell you why and how I got to this point and how I work with clients after the loss of a loved one to help them find meaning and purpose. And part of that is through becoming guardians of their loved one's legacy. So how did I get to this conversation? And I'll tell you more about it. It's been a long time in the making. I was ordained as a rabbi in 2002, so it's 18, 19 years ago. Excuse me. And during tenure as a rabbi and then 5 or 6 years of rabbinical school, I've done, I think I calculated 500 funerals. It's a lot of funerals. It's a lot of death, a lot of loss of all kinds, and especially the loss of a loved one. There's no greater loss. But not all funerals were the same. I mean, all loss is tragic. All death is tragic. There's no way around it. Anybody who spins it otherwise either isn't being honest or hasn't really lost somebody, because it's tragic. And I don't care what age. It can be beautiful. It can be a good death. At age 100 plus, you've outlived your contemporaries. You've lived a good life. You're in pain and suffering. Transitioning to the next world is a blessing, but it's not a blessing without loss here in this world, unless there isn't anybody to remember you. And I guess that's where I've really derived this idea of becoming a guardian of our loved one's legacy from having officiated at funerals where there was nobody. There was very few, sometimes literally nobody other than me and people paid to be there. The funeral director, the cemetery workers, and me officiating at this person's death. And that is so painful. It's what I call tragedy compounded. Not to have those to carry on our legacy. And really have set out for years now to help reimagine the way we approach death and the loss of our loved ones, to think about our role after a loved one has died. And we have a role, and we need the role. We need a task, a sacred duty. I think one of the greatest mistakes and challenges is when our loved one dies and we get the counsel of, survive, which is a starting point. It's not an end point. You can't survive forever. You can't live on the battlefield doing triage forever. And in order to do more than survive, we have to have meaning. We have to have purpose. Somebody will say, but what's the meaning in the death, right? I want them back. I want my loved ones back. That's not the possibility. The possibility is this. I've said this over and over, and I'll say it over and over. It's not mine, but I don't even know where it comes from at this point. A person dies 2 deaths. Once when their body dies, once when their story dies. There's nothing we can do about bodily death. I mean, we can hire the best doctors and have the right medicines and, do everything we can, but there comes a point where each of us has to leave this world. It's the way it is. There's nothing we can do about bodily death. When it's our time, it's our loved one's time to go. But we can do something about the other death, about the story of our loved one's lives. That's in our hands. Right? A person dies 2 deaths. We can't do anything about the physical death, but we can do everything, at least while we're here, maybe beyond while we're here, to guard their story. And people's lives are a story, a sacred story. And thinking about, so what does that mean? How do we become the guardians of our loved one's story? I've been talking a lot lately about memory. And oftentimes we think of memory as just happening. As I've shared in many videos, the number one commandment in the Bible, in the Torah, is to remember the stranger, the widow, the orphan, to remember. But it isn't just something that happens. It's an act, it's a verb, right? Remembering. So how do we remember? By doing. I don't put that much stock into feeling. I think it's an important thing to get to and to change our feelings, but I take great stock in action. There's a saying in Judaism, na'aseh v'nishma, that we will do and we will understand. That's what the Israelites said at the base of Mount Sinai. Give it to us. We will do it. We will take it upon ourselves, and then hopefully in time it'll penetrate our hearts and we'll feel it. But until then, the doing is meaningful. I use the example oftentimes of giving money to somebody who's homeless, right? Do I want somebody to give it and do it with a loving heart? Absolutely. But what if you can't find that love in your heart, right? Is it not better to give anyways? From the homeless person's perspective, it is better to give even if you don't have love in your heart. Now, hopefully, you'll have love in your heart, and doing the action, I believe, from right intention will open your heart. But even if it doesn't, you still affected a positive change. That is also true with remembering. It isn't enough to leave it up to, I hope I guard my loved one's story and I'm thinking about them. So what do we do? How do we create, right, the memory and make sure that we're guarding the memories? By taking action. Here's an example. In the Jewish tradition, we have what's called Yahrzeit. It's the anniversary of a loved one's death. And in it, we are supposed to do certain things. We're supposed to light a candle. We're supposed to symbolize, obviously, so many different symbolisms in that. We're supposed to light a candle to show that we are still remembering, that we're actually remembering the day, not only the day, but who they are. We're supposed to recite a prayer called Kaddish, the mourner's prayer. We're supposed to go to the synagogue and be a part of community. We're supposed to contribute charitably to the world. There's so many different things that we're supposed to do, but that's the point. We don't just say, it's my loved one's Yahrzeit, it's the memorial of their death, and that's the end of the story. We have different memorial services throughout the year. We got to take time. We got to make time. We got to show up. This is why Ariella and I, Ariella is my wife and co-founder of Soul Centered, we're doing the legacy experience for Mother's Day on Sunday. And it's going to be about memorial, remembering, but taking time on this beautiful, wonderful day to actively remember our mother or our mothers, right? All kinds of mothers, physical, emotional, spiritual, in our lives, to make time to remember them. It also serves the purpose on something, I think, important and profound for those of us whose mothers aren't in this world, to do on Mother's Day, right? It isn't just a day of Hallmark cards and Facebook lives, waxing poetic about how wonderful it is to be with our mothers, because many of us, I'm not part of this club, thank God, have lost our mothers. I've lost my father. That'll be different for me on Father's Day. Ariella's lost her mother, and it really came from her saying, I want to do something for my mother. So what do I do on Mother's Day? We don't live near a grave to go pay tribute. So we have this legacy experience for her and for so many others like her, probably for many of you, to take an hour to recite some poetry, to send some prayers, to recall the stories. That's how you guard this story. There's so many amazing ways now to guard this story. I guess another reason why I'm so passionate about it is because I think that we're missing an opportunity, especially with technology, around telling the story of our loved ones. Every day now, I go walk through the cemetery across the street from where I live. Coronavirus, one of the perfect places to go walk around. It's huge, it's beautiful, and there's not a lot of people there. There's not a lot of living people, there's a lot of spirits there. So you walk around the cemetery across the street from my house, and what do you see or what don't you see? You see literally, I don't know, 10, 20,000 stones. It's an enormous cemetery. And you see QR codes, right? Those little weird little codes that are on products, but you don't see QR codes on the stones. You see them on the trees. So you can learn about the Colorado red oak or whatever, the willow tree, whatever it might be. And you can scan it and you can read about it. And every time I go, I think, what a shame. Great. You can learn the story of the tree, that's important, but not nearly as important as Mr. Smith, Mrs. Simpson, right? This person that's here on the stone, these dates represent a life. A great poem called The Dash represents their hopes, their dreams, their longings, their accomplishments. We got to tell that story. We got to code those stones, and the technology exists. If you're interested, Seven Stones is a cemetery here in Denver, Colorado, reimagining the cemetery experience. And I'm working on some projects, reimagining the memorial, the legacy technology experience. At my synagogue, where I was previously in Swampscott, Massachusetts, we had yard site plaques, memorial plaques on all the walls, like almost every synagogue, where we remember our loved ones, their birthday, their death day, their Hebrew name, their English name. But we were running out of wall space. And so this was 10, 15 years ago. We, in addition to having those, we created a virtual memorial alcove with relatively simple technology. And we put into the system our loved ones' names and their dates, but it also can take pictures, and it's, the sky's the limit. Now there's AI and holograms. So check out, I don't have the website, but check out Zachor, Z-A-C-H-O-R Foundation. That means memorial. And it was founded by a Holocaust survivor named Ben Lesser. And Ben has sunk a lot of time and effort and money into this organization, but also what they're doing. They were just on 60 Minutes, I don't know, a month ago, about the technology. And you can now hover over Ben as a kind of a virtual image on your screen and ask him questions. And he interacts with you. And I believe he's still alive, thank God. But there will come a point, obviously, when he's not. And his children, his grandchildren, and all of us who need to know the story about the Holocaust can now interact with Ben. It's a remarkable technology. The sky's the limit, right? You don't even have to be that fancy. You have a phone. If your mother's still here, put it into her hand this Mother's Day and have her record some videos for you, for your children, for your grandchildren. If you're that mother, if you're the grandmother, record videos for your loved one, grandfathers, fathers, everybody. We have this technology now. We should start utilizing it to help tell our story and to help those who come after us to tell our story. That's why we're here. That's what we're meant to do. We can become guardians of our loved ones' stories. Maybe next time I'll talk about how we contribute to the story, like recording those videos. So it makes it very hard to write a eulogy as a rabbi when there's nobody to talk to, or when the stories they have are thin. It makes it very hard to tell the stories of our loved ones if we haven't told them ourselves to them in writing or verbally at the very least, or again, videoing or audio recording, whatever it might be. But it is an opportunity for each and every one of us to think about, right, memory, remembering, the act of remembering, the role of remembering, and our duty as a survivor of our loved ones who have died and physically left this world, though they are very much still alive in so many ways. Spiritually, I believe they're alive, but just practically, right? The fact that you're thinking about them, it means they're alive. A thought is a thing. It's in your head. It's real. You can still hear their voice. You can still see their image. You can still remember those stories. You become a guardian of those stories. It is yours to tell your children, your children's children. And in that way, we can defy death. I see it with my children. My kids, two of them met their grandfather, and they were really little when they met him. Two of them never met him, and yet all of them feel like they know him. Why? Because I talk about him a lot. I talk about Shelley, Grandpa Shelley, his name's Shelley, sayings and games that he used to play with me, and kind of a weird tone of speech that he had when he was playing around, and just silliness. But they talk about their grandpa as if he's a part of their life, and I believe he is a part of their life, and I believe I have fulfilled a duty. And it's been an honor to do that, to become a guardian of his story. And that's what I encourage all of you to think about. How are you a guardian of your loved one's story? No matter where you are on your journey through grief, or maybe it's a long time ago, to really think about this. Think about your role. And thinking about, and I'll end with this beautiful version of the quote I gave before, but this is by David Eagleman, who wrote it in some of 40 Tales from the Afterlives. And he says, there are 3 deaths. The first is when the body ceases to function. The second is when the body is consigned to the grave. The third is that moment at some time in the future when your name is spoken for the last time. And we'll end with that, right? There's nothing you can do about your loved one's physical death, but there's everything you can do about telling their story, about making sure that their name, more importantly, their legacy, continues on. Not always carrying all of the legacy forward. We'll talk a little bit about that on Mother's Day, and I'll do another talk on that. It's about setting down what needs to be set down, what needs to be let go of, and carrying the constructive fire, as I talk about sometimes, carrying the fire, the constructive fire of what we want to remember, what needs to be remembered, letting go what needs to be let go of, but carrying forward the parts of the story that are the essence of your loved one, who they are, who they will always be. And that's what it means to become a guardian of the story. Join us on Sunday. Very excited to have the legacy experience for Mother's Day. It'll be at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. East Coast Time, back it up, 8 a.m. Pacific Time. And it's an opportunity to pray, to meditate, to sing, to read some poems, to reflect on your mother that is no longer here physically, but is here spiritually and emotionally. And now you are the guardian of her story. So join us on Sunday, and we will continue this conversation of becoming guardians of our loved ones' legacy. Until next time, salam, shalom, namaste, and peace.